This is TWiT.
I've been wondering, I've been waiting. There was a while there. You know, I have the PS4 and the PlayStation 4, and I have the PlayStation VR, and it's okay. I mean, it was kind of the first VR experience that I had. Now, of course, we've got the PlayStation 5, and we finally have more information about the PlayStation VR2 package. So, you know, as we're kind of heading toward this Christmas season, which blows me away that we're already in November. It's really weird. Wow. This year has been super fast in strange ways. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the PlayStation VR2 package in time for Christmas, if that's what you're hoping. So, but I've got some details here for you. The next gen VR headset, Sony has announced, is priced at $550. So that's the cost for the headset. 600 euros, 530 British pounds sterling, whatever you got to spend. That's what you have to expect. Just by comparison, or just of note, the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition console, which is kind of the cheapest entry point into the PlayStation 5, is $400. It's $399.99. So essentially that means that the PS VR2 is a decent bit more expensive than the system itself. Pre-orders begin November 15th, so that's just like another week and a half, I think, from Sony directly. And they will be available on February 22nd, 2023, which I believe is a year after they made the official announcement of the device. So just an interesting factoid. So you're going to have to wait until February in order to actually get this. You'll be able to get your pre-order in early before Christmas if you want that. They also will have a package deal with Horizon Call of the Mountain, which is a game that I would love to play on this thing. That's going to cost $600. So, So, you know, another $50 that gets you the game built in. Sony's also offering, by the way, a charging station for the controllers that runs for an additional $50. So you could spend a decent amount of money to build this up. But I think it's important to point this out. $550 sounds like a lot. The original PlayStation VR, when it launched back in 2016, was for $500. That included the headset. That included the camera. You know, that, I don't know. Did you ever use the PlayStation VR, the first one?
I've never used PSVR. That's the one that I never got a chance to try out.
I mean, honestly, like the games were really great. The experience was sometimes not ideal because it was a single like camera that, you know, was in front of you. The controllers were the big like touch one. I can't remember what the Move controllers, I think is what they were called. Really weird controllers,
on the top, right?
Yes, the ones with the orbs on the top. And they were never intuitive, especially once you got your hands into like the Oculus controllers or the Vive controllers. It was like, really, I got to use this wand thing? I don't know. It never really appealed to me, but nonetheless, it was my first VR. So, you know, back then, back in 2016, $500 got you the headset, it got you that camera, it got you the controllers. If you adjust that for inflation, that's around $620 in now money. So, you know, I guess that's one way to think about it, right? It's less than that cost adjusted for inflation. At least there's that. Here's, I think, a bummer about this, though, is that, and I imagine you probably agree with this because your experience has been with the Meta Quest. I have the Meta Quest. I also have the Meta Quest 2. And now, of course, we have the Meta Quest Pro, which I haven't tried yet. But I believe that all three of those systems, the same games work on all of them because really at its core, it's Android. Like they're running Android. I believe the Meta Quest Pro is still running Android, but I know the Meta Quest and the Meta Quest 2 do run Android at its core. So really, these are games designed around Android, and so they're kind of future proofed that way. They translate, you know, to future devices as they come out. I don't know if that'll happen forever and ever, but that's certainly been the case so far. With the PlayStation 4 games that you got for the PSVR, those are not going to be compatible. So Sony announced 2 months ago at the Tokyo Game Show that the new hardware is not going to support previous generation games, which is kind of in line with how consoles have traditionally worked. They've gotten better about this, allowing for older, you know, system games to work on newer systems and building in that cross compatibility. But that's not the case here. So if you've got the original PlayStation VR, you've built up a large library of games and everything like that, those games are not going to automatically work in PSVR2, which is a bummer. It's understandable, but it's a total bummer. However, thankfully, there are some game manufacturers who are already announcing that if you bought, their game on the older system, they're going to do like a free upgrade to the newer system. After the Fall, Zenith, The Last City, those are just a few of the titles being ported over. And then if you had that original version, you get that upgrade for free. So I hope that's a sign that more games are going to actually bring that over. But Sony says, it's just not as easy as just taking the old game and having it run on the new hardware. The new hardware is upgraded in a lot of different ways, right? The completely redesigned controller, which I think is a really great thing. Haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, inside-out tracking, no more of that external camera, whatever they called it, thankfully. Eye tracking inside the headset, 3D audio, 4K HDR support, 110-degree field of view, up to 120 hertz refresh rate. So, I mean, huge upgrades over the original PlayStation VR, as we would hope and we would expect. But kind of a bummer because I don't know about you, but like I have a lot of games in my MetaQuest library. And I suppose at this point, I just kind of take it for granted because when I read this, even though this is really in line with how consoles have worked forever, when I read this, I was like, oh, that seems like a really big disappointment. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just expected.
I don't know, because I think maybe at one point it was, but now that we've got things like Steam, where people buy a lot of their games and can count on them running on not only, future versions of their own computer, but also on different platforms in many ways, there is an expectation that these games can work across different systems. And I mean, Sony itself is actually not too terrible in other ways at making these games work across systems. Because my partner has a PlayStation 5, and I know he plays PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 games on it from time to time, even though it's a PlayStation 5, because there's some sort of like compatibility patch kind of thing that goes onto it. So that's the thing is like, then when you are left with the choice, do I buy this for my PSVR or do I buy this for my MetaQuest? It's no surprise that your MetaQuest library is so big because that putting your money there is going to last for a while versus putting your money here where you end up having to buy new stuff. I think it doesn't add up for me. I think this is a mistake, to be honest. They should, I can understand that at some point you do have to say, this is so much more advanced that it's not going to be able to work with this one. Or, we had to switch engines. And so the rendering engine on this is a whole new thing. And so I think everybody gets one or maybe two over the course of the life of a product. Or the course of the life of a company. But it does feel like this is such a small timeline that it's kind of it's too quick to already be saying, sorry, but this earlier version just doesn't work with this.
Yeah. And Anthony Nielsen here at TWiT pointed out in the Discord, the PSVR 1 games do work on the PS5. It really comes down to so the games load on the PS5 because that cross compatibility for the software is there. Sony is making the argument that, well, that might be the case, but you've still got to, all of these other pieces of the new hardware that don't line up with the pieces of the old hardware. How do you draw the correlation between those things and map them appropriately and all that kind of stuff to make it work, which I can kind of understand. I mean, I am super
give developers
excited.
The tools to do it.
True. Like, give them the ability to do it. They put in the time, it behooves them to do so. Instead, what they're left with is having to create the new game, which is great, and then offer that free upgrade. I just hope that developers actually do that because that seems like the right thing to do to me, but maybe not. Maybe they feel differently. I don't know. But I'm excited to play some of these games. I'm excited to check it out. I do not have a PS5. So I don't know when that will be. I don't know if I'm going to be getting one anytime soon anyways, but I do know that from my experiences with playing the PlayStation VR is that though the experience, of the headset was a lot more wonky, the huge cable that came from it that runs to your PlayStation versus the, inside out tracking that we have on the Meta Quest. Like the experience of the Meta Quest is so easy. You just throw it on and you go. With the PlayStation VR, it always takes a lot more setup. So that part of it, there's a big disconnect there by comparison. But the quality of the games that I've played on the PlayStation VR, like, they're a console. It's at its core, it is a game console. And so there's just a little bit more that can be done there. The hardware can be pushed a little bit more than a computer that's running Android apps, that it's scaling down or cutting back the fidelity of the graphics and everything. I think that's going to be different with the VR2, and I would love to see what that looks like, because I have a feeling things are going to be really impressive. You're just going to have to pay for it, and isn't that just how it always works? It's kind of the way it goes.
Sadly, yeah.
Sadly, that's how the world turns. So there you go. I'm excited, but it does seem like a missed opportunity to not bake in, not at least, like you said, give those tools to developers so that if they want to do the work, they can make it happen. Because I know a lot of people are the same people that would buy the 2 probably have the 1. A lot of them, anyways,
right? Exactly.
It is expensive. Yeah. So that's a big misstep.
Still,
I think.
Yeah, VR is not. It's not in the wider public realm enough to be able to make those kinds of choices. You're still in the, I feel like you're still in the, you're completely in the carrot stage, and to throw a stick this soon is not great.
Hey folks, I'm Ant Pruitt and I have a question for you. How do you think your hardworking team, with a Club TWiT corporate subscription plan, of course, show your appreciation and reward your tech team with a subscription to Club TWiT? Keep everyone informed and entertained with podcasts covering the latest in tech. With the Club TWiT subscription, they get access to all of our podcasts ad-free. And they also get access to our members-only Discord, access to exclusive outtakes and behind-the-scenes footage and special content like the fireside chats that I enjoy hosting. Plus, they also get shows like Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, and the Untitled Linux Show. So, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and look for corporate plans for complete details.